Hello, good morning and welcome to the episode of Motoring Middle East. Today I'm checking out a car that actually I've been wanting to drive for a really long time, but I couldn't because they didn't make it in the specification that I wanted. But now at last it's here and I can. It is of course the Toyota Hilux Adventure. Now we all know the Hilux is pretty famous from Top Gear and being basically indestructible, invincible, and as Toyota is calling it in the Middle East, unbreakable. However, it isn't what I would describe as the most desirable vehicle for a lot of people because it's kind of seen as a work truck and a work pickup. But what they've done now is this new adventure version. And what that basically means is they put lots of lifestyle bits on it, sort of improved the interior, made it more livable, more habitable, and less like a commercial vehicle. And the most important thing of all is that under the hood is a 4-liter V6 with 240 horsepower. Yes, no longer any rattly diesels or raspy, whiny 4 cylinders. Now we've got actual power and an actual gearbox, 6-speed automatic, so no changing manual gears anymore, which is a bit of a shame because I'd like a manual gearbox. But honestly, apart from that, I'm really excited to drive this car. Prices are 143,000 dirhams, one spec, fully loaded. Let's see how it shapes up. So what do you think of the exterior of the Hilux? Well, I really quite like it in this grey. It's quite smart and good looking, very military camo. What have we got at the front? We've got the new Hilux green, which is sort of a hexagon, and you've got a double stack radiator bisected by this black strip down the middle. Reasonable approach angle. I mean, there's a bit of a plastic thing down here, so I'd probably take a knock or two, but should be reasonably tough. There is a steel skid plate underneath. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's there. So you might be wondering, what's up with these plasticky bits? And they're sort of like an external trim pack that you get in some other markets. I believe Australia has it as a Rugged X or whatever, something similar to that. It is quite a noticeable thing. It's a bit like the over fenders on a Mini GP, the new one. And it's either love it or leave it proposition. I quite like it. And you've got, of course, this very interesting different colored section here, which is sort of not body color. It's actually, the body is green. This is gray. So you've got 3 colors on this car: green, gray, and dark gray. At the bottom, you've got 18-inch wheels. Yes, 18-inch wheels on a Hilux. No fancy suspension here, just regular shocks and struts. And you've got Dunlop PT tires in 265/60/18. So reasonable tire, but obviously anybody buying this car is gonna, for off-road work, is gonna throw these away straight away. Although I have no idea how it performs off-road, but being a Hilux, I have high expectations. You've also got the V6 badge down here, which let everybody else from the work site know that you've got the boss pickup, the V6. Other than that, pretty much standard Hilux. You've also got these quite natty stripes which start all the way here. That's such a 1920s word, natty. Comes back to Adventure, which is the logo that Toyota and Alfa Theme are using out here. Quite a good looking car, I think, quite noticeable. It's a bit like the Tacoma, but without Tacoma's insectoid face. Now, at the back, I would like some sort of big Toyota logo, but instead all you've got is a little one that says Hilux down here. And actually, the way you look at it, it looks like Hilux. It looks like 2 L's, doesn't it? It looks like 1 L and a second L and an I. So maybe I'm just blind, but it is a Hilux. You've also got the Adventure logo down here. You've also got a roll-up tonneau cover. Very handy. And if you can look at the back right there, that center panel slides open just like an expensive F-150. All right, let's open the back. Yeah, no damped gate down here, let's be honest with you. You've got tie downs. You've got some sort of contraption down there. It's like a roll box, I think. Oh yeah, because this rolls back, it goes into that little blue thing at the back. But yeah, reasonable size bed. You've got bed liner down here. These trucks, of course, made in Thailand. And if you look very carefully, in the back, Indy would spot the Toyota logo, well hidden. So yeah, you've got tie down points. You haven't got any bed lighting. That would be nice. And other than that, it seems okay. I mean, a tonneau cover is like a 3 or 4 grand thing, so this is a nice thing to throw in for free. And normally, I like to look at the spare tire because I'm a nerd. So where is the spare tire? Right, it's under there. It's under there. And yeah, it's your last line of defense if you hit the ground. Oh, and the world's wimpiest exhaust. But I'm pretty sure the Thais have an answer for that. All right, we've talked enough about the exterior. Oh, and look at the world's smallest shocks. Isn't that so cute? Yeah, you can get your full line of Kings, Icon, Fox, whatever to make this into a really beefy off-road monster. But as you see, the Hilux is not to be trifled with even in stock configuration. Oh, and quite a meaty differential and rear axle. That's the thing, that's the reason why you buy a Hilux, is because it has so much off-road capability and those axles are so stout. That's why you buy a pickup truck, because they're tough and they can take it. All right. What's it like in the back of the Hilux? Well, if you were trying to not think commercial pickup, it's a bit hard to avoid it here. The backrest is not adjustable, so it's quite upright. It's okay, it's a decent angle. Seats, as you can see, the squab is mounted quite low, so my knees are sitting high, but I have got adequate leg room in the back. This is me sitting behind myself, and I have just enough space in front of me to not feel uncomfortable. Although if you're a 6'2" Australian, and there are the people who buy this car in large numbers, that's right, the Hilux is the best selling vehicle in Australia, they would be a little uncomfortable in this car because they're not small people. Yeah, headroom okay. I don't like this headliner fabric, it's a bit like scratchy mouse fur. I think the materials could have been nicer there, but it's reasonable. It's like a pretty hard wearing fabric. We've got a armrest here. Yep, armrest with 2 cup holders. And entertainment wise, there's nothing. There's 2 AC vents back here, which is thank God, because on a hot day this will probably keep you alive. There's also a little coat hanger rack here. It says max 4 kg on it, so you can hacken things on the back. There's no USBs, there's a pocket, and better bring a magazine. Better bring a very good magazine. So what's the interior of the Hilux like? Well, it's got quite a snazzy little instrument cluster, isn't it? That's the one that you find in the Innova as well. I mean, they're all basically the same truck. And this has quite a nice mix of colors. You've got, down here, you've got red, blue, and then like a weird like matte grey finish, a bit of carbon fiber-esque trim in there. You've got a central color display. And if you look through it, all Toyota standard instruments. So obviously digital speedo, which is very nice to have. You've got fuel economy, range, very important, economy, at the moment not much because I'm in the desert, and more economy but more records, etc. And the angle of the wheels, that's quite cool. I always like watching that. I'm very nerdy. And then if you press right, you've got music. I've listened to some podcasts. You've got warnings, messages, settings, and that's about it. You've got throaty roar from the engine, and really only very basic instrumentation. You've got obviously a fuel heat indicator, coolant level basically, and fuel. Pulling back out, you've got a pretty standard Toyota steering wheel. You've got your 4-way jog dial down here. This takes you through all of those same settings that you had before. Yeah, this takes care of all your settings. This is like back, and of course the famous Toyota cruise control, which will never die. And down here you've got volume knobs. You've got, did I say knob? That's a volume set of buttons actually. Again, quite easy to get to. This is your track change, etc., and this switches between your various modes. You've also got very clear pickup call and end call buttons. Otherwise down here you've got, well, but my water bottle. You've got, this is quite nice by the way, you've got 4 fully automatic windows. So if you press one, goes down, and if you hold it back, goes back up again. That's quite a nice feature. You haven't got power folding mirrors. I'd like to have power folding mirrors. You've got of course central locking, etc. So what else have you got down here? You've got parking sensors and a setting for the TPMS. Now apart from my very bright blue Adidas mask, what else have we got? Very decent storage cubby, but not cooled with any sort of air conditioning, and nor does it have a USB in here. It does have leather on it, like actual leather or maybe vinyl or something, but it's quite a nice place to keep your hands. 6-speed automatic, and just behaves exactly like the classic Toyota Mercedes style shifters of old. You've got economy mode, which is pointless, and a power mode, which will be handy in the sand, I suspect. Down here you've got a Qi charging point, very handy. 2 decent sized cup holders, automatic climate control AC. You've got traction control off, a rear diff lock. Yes, a rear diff lock. This activates the Qi charging point, and another USB port down. I think this one connects to the central infotainment system. Of course, we've got a cigarette lighter, but a power charging socket, and we've got 2 of them. Handy, eh? Now here you've got climate control, talked about already. Here's your 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and low range. Pretty idiot proof. And here, this is quite handy. I'm not sure if this is just optional or they just fitted it, but basically it's a phone holder. But check it out. When you put your phone in, it holds it. I always like things that move. Engine start stop button, and of course the infotainment system. Now unfortunately it's a bit of a design flaw. Having this thing here blocks the home button that you're looking for. So you've got your sound down here, you've got fuel economy and phone contacts. There's no navigation, but because the phone has most phones now have CarPlay or Android Auto, this can connect via that USB and give you anything you want, so really you don't miss navigation. It's basically the same system that Toyota is using in a lot of cars right now. Very easy to use, very quick. It's got apps, but I don't know what these apps are. I'm waiting. Something will happen, I imagine, of note. But yeah, it's a reasonable system. It's pretty bright, it's pretty clear. I just don't think it's particularly premium, but gets the job done. So what am I complaining? As long as I have my CarPlay, I don't care. Oh, and of course I've saved the best for last. Famous Toyota clock. It will never die. Seriously, man, this is 2020. I had this clock in 2010. And I'm pretty sure I saw it when I was growing up in the 80s as well. Oh, hold on. Something happened down here. But it's smart and legal to do so. Assuming it's not, this application is wrong. Okay. What does that mean? I think this is kind of like mirroring. Basically like CarPlay and Android Auto. But if you have CarPlay and Android Auto, why Android Auto, why would you get this? Anyway, let's look at the seats. They've got again this strange pattern. It's like wood. And the seats are not the most comfortable in the world, if I'm being honest with you. All my stuff is here as usual because I'm a messy boy. But I do like the trim choices. So you've got this piano black finish here. You've got pretty hard plastics down here that's stitched to look like leather, but it's not. Yeah, and again, I wish the steering wheel was leather as well, because this is again some hard urethane plastic. It's not the most premium thing in the world, is it, Toyota? Next time, please put some leather on there. If you're paying 140,000, 3,000 dirhams, you should be able to get leather. And again, this is all pretty much cheap plastic, solid, but cheap. Up here, all hard plastic. Oh, you got leather here. So the parts that matter, they've put leather. So this is a nice armrest. And again, as we pointed down here. So yeah, the biggest problem at all is that this doesn't have enough adjustment fore and aft. So in other words, it doesn't telescope enough far. I'm sitting in my regular seating position, but the steering wheel is still too far away. This is my arm at full extension, and if you can see it, full extension, and it doesn't touch the wheel. Ideally, your ideal seating position should be able to rest your palm neatly on top and just fall over the side. That's how far away you should be from the steering wheel. But to sit back in the way that I'm comfortable, I can't reach the steering wheel. The seat will be okay, even the height adjustable. It's got a weird thing where the roof is quite low and the seat sits quite high. So yeah, I want the steering wheel to come out more to meet me. And by the way, while talking about the roof, what is up with this fabric? It's like weird mouse fur. I'm sure it'll last forever. Oh, and you've got no fancy A-track or anything like that, but you've got a cup holder. A cup holder, he said. That's the place to keep his sunglasses. Enough waffling. What's it like on the road? So I've been waiting a really long time to drive the Hilux and see what it's like, because I've always had this fantasy of having something so tough and so unbreakable, and also because I'm a little bit left field. And I think that's the kind of person who this car will appeal to. Somebody who's looked at your Prados, looked at your Land Cruisers, looked at your Wranglers, looked at your Gladiators and gone, that's not all for me. I want a pickup, but I want a pickup that's unbreakable and it also has a bit of a roughy-tufty commercial grade feel to it. And for a lot of people, it's a bit difficult choice because it's still a pickup underneath, but definitely has lots of chops. But first of all, let's see what it's like on the road. Lots of torque. V8 style torque. I think it's around 260 something, 280, 200 foot-pounds of torque. It's a very old school engine. There's two versions of these V6. One with 240 horsepower and one with 270 something. The difference is basically some internal changes, but basically VVTi single version versus VVTi dual version. And what that means is it changes the character of the engine because the intake runners change. It's kind of like VTEC. So in this version it has single VVTi. So what that means is it's kind of very bottom endy. At the bottom there's lots of torque. At the top end not so much. And I shall now demonstrate. Foot power to floor, 80, 100, 4,000 RPM becomes very gruff, very noisy. It gets up and goes. I should also point out this car has only got less than 2,000 kilometers on it, so it is not exactly the best example because it's so new, but definitely not a powerhouse of power. The dual VTI version that you get in the FJ is better in terms of top end, but it has nothing in terms of low end. I don't like driving FJs for that reason because the FJs have just nothing going on at the bottom end. This, honestly, this version is probably the best one they could have gone with, the single VVTi. It's probably a little less expensive as well. But the 6-speed auto, well, it's part of the problem. The 6-speed auto is super lazy. So if you kick down, changes one gear, really like two gears, and then suddenly it drops down and takes off. It's just the programming is so geared towards fuel economy, which isn't very good at either. It's like 13, 15 liters per 100. It's just okay on fuel economy. I wouldn't say it's the last word in fuel saving. So yeah, the driving experience is a little bit like a wild bucking horse, like a Mustang on the prowl. Other things that are kind of iffy, questionable. The seat's okay, comfort-wise. I mean, I'd like some lumbar adjustment, but there isn't any. But as you can see, I'm sitting in my preferred seating position because my legs are quite long. And I'm trying to grab the steering wheel, and it's almost impossible because I've got to reach out my arms like this. And if I like to, you should be able, when you have your steering wheel, to be able to drop your hand comfortably over the corner. But you can't do that. This is at full extension, and it's not reaching the steering wheel. So this needs to telescope more. Spend the money and get a proper telescopic steering wheel. I'm sure I've seen this in the Prado, the steering wheel, before. It's okay. It's very plasticky. So the things that you lean on are quite nice. They've got leather. But the things that you hold are quite plasticky. So yeah, 143,000 dirhams. I'm happy for the Apple CarPlay. I'm happy for the AC system, which is quite strong. But you know, like all cars, takes a while to work up in this heat. There's no sunroof. There is the famous Toyota clock, and there is this strange phone holder which can't hold my phone because if I put my phone in, it just drops out. If it sounds like I'm being negative, it's because, you know, I have a lot of high hopes for this car, and it's a very competitive segment. You're talking about cars like the Gladiator, which is 30,000 dirhams more, 170,000 dirhams, but is a much more modern experience on the inside. And then you've got stuff like the Prado, which is, I think, maybe 10 or 15 grand more, but is a much more car-like car. Having said that, you know, it's got the power once you get to it. Well, some more negatives to come. The ride is quite bouncy. You can't quite see it at the back, but the back is quite bouncy. It is a bit of a rustic driving experience, let's put it this way. It drives more like a Land Cruiser 70 than I'd like to admit. Steering is also very low geared. So off center, it's got actually good response. It's got really nice response. And the front ride is not bad. The back is quite agricultural, but I think that's because the leaf springs won't have anything in them. If you put stuff in the leaf springs, it'll probably get a lot better. But now here's the problem with the steering. It's very low geared. Now what I mean is, you've got a lot of turns. Turn, and yeah, I mean, come on guys. This is electric steering. It feels like old-fashioned steering. So yeah, on road, it is a little bit a trial to drive. It is a little bit tiring to drive because you're having to do a lot of work and keep some corrections, and the powertrain isn't particularly willing. But what this car is not about is not doing schleps to office and back. It's about adventure, capital A adventure. So adventure means let's take it off-road and see what it's like, shall we? Okay, so I've taken the Hilux out to my usual spot. I have deflated the 18-inch wheels to 15 psi. I have turned traction control off. I have put it into sport mode. It's got a manual mode, which is nice. The one thing about the Hilux you notice is the moment you go into the sand, it feels so comfortable. It's like, this is what I was made to do. And I think we're going to find out it was made to do it pretty well. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. But you know what? It climbs so well, even in second gear. Although it does that thing that Toyotas do, which I don't like, which won't change down unless you really, really ask for it. Oh, goodness me. But it does the job, eh? It does the job. Standard 18-inch wheels does it pretty well. Let me see if I leave it automatic. Yeah, the problem with automatic gearbox is it just doesn't listen to you. And new generation of ZFs or whatever, they do listen to you. It's quite bouncy, but again, we're not driving fancy suspension, so let's be honest, it's only 143,000 dirhams. And it's very cut up today. So maybe it's not entirely the... Oh, that was quite bad for my spine. Alright, let's give it the beans. That was the beans, but she'll do it. She climbs quite nicely, actually. These are very road-oriented tires, but no issue at all. Man, who's been through here? The entire Afghanistan army? Oh, that's much better. Finally, some smooth sand. The rides are actually pretty good once you get up here. It's actually pretty good. No issues at all. Alright, I had a slightly infamous moment here, so I don't want to repeat it by any means. So I'm going to go around and just make sure that all is well with my usual drop area. Right. This is in fact the infamous drop. How does the Hilux do? Put it into first gear. Fall it down. Fall it down? What has happened to my English? Drop it down. Fall it down. Yeah, approach angle's good. Alright, let's give it some power up the steep bit. Oof, it's quite bouncy, but you know what? She gets up and goes. The engine's very tight because it's a brand new engine, so I want to be fair to it, but it's not quite a sports car like as the Gladiator, but that's not fair because the Gladiator was running very expensive Fox shocks, and you could put those same shocks, well, exact same ones, but you can put those shocks on here, and you know what? If you had some decent shocks up here, it's a mountain goat. Look, it's going straight up. Actually, it's pretty good. Watch out, let's not go crazy because we don't want to like damage anything, but it'll do it, man. It'll do it. It'll do it. Let me just drop down the corner like I always do. Very good. Very good. Very good. Good work. Good work. It's very stiff, which is good because I mean the chassis doesn't flex much. However, that does mean that these poor little shocks are not going to be able to do much. So I would say it's the kind of car that can get you to the beach, get you to the most average rocky sites, and take a hell of a pounding. But if you're going to do serious off-road work, you'd want to upgrade these shocks straight away. So add another 10 to 15 grand to do the job properly. All right, one last job to do before we head back, and that is how does it do up the steep triangular bit? Second gear. Well, the gearbox is not really playing ball, is it? Oh, ABS. So yeah, it definitely, the gearbox needs a little work. All right, put it back into first. Bouncy, 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 and it changed up. But it's still going. It's still going. It's still going. It'll do it. The gearbox, yeah, is a bit of a low point because it kind of just does its own thing. And I'd rather have a manual. Unfortunately, we don't get a manual. Oh, look at that. What's that? We don't get a manual out here. But overall, pretty good car in the sense that it's a good off-road platform and it'll do just about anything. It'll do just about anything you want it to do. It is literally an adventure. It's so bouncy. It's like being on safari. Alright, that's enough for now. Yeah, I think it'll do it. It'll do it. But I would want to upgrade the suspension on top of my priority list because right now it's just beating up my spine. Which is odd. I feel like the Ford Ranger I drove recently wouldn't have done this, but who's to say? I didn't take that off-road, but it was a much more pliant suspension on-road and off. Alrighty, let's head back to the road. So what's my conclusion on the Hilux Adventure? Who should buy this car? Well, if you're looking for something very comfortable, not the car for you. I would say spend a bit more and get a Prado. If you're looking for something that's a rock hopper, again, maybe not the car for you, go get a Wrangler. But if you're looking for something that's got very good load carrying capacity, space for 4 people, and CarPlay and Android Auto, well, it's kind of your only bet. Plus, it's a very good platform. So from this car, I could build it up to be an overland. I could build it up to be a dune basher. I could build it up to be a lot of things. Put some 33-inch tires on this thing, steel bumper on the front, and you've got a very, very capable vehicle. And all that bumpiness is just not important. But it's important to understand that this car isn't for everybody. And that's what I like about it. The person who buys this car looked at a Prado, looked at a Grand Cherokee and said, you know what? I fancy a little adventure in my life. And if you are adventurous or the person who your kids will look up and say one day, look, Daddy took us in a pickup to school every day with the big adventure graphics down the side. Daddy did that. If that's the person you want to be, if that's the kind of father you want to be, I submit the Hilux Adventure is for you. Thanks for watching. This is Imthishan. This is Motoring Middle East, and we'll be back very soon. And by we, I mean me.